Welcome back. Literary critics of Hemingway's work have developed this narrative to describe the type of personality that the leading men in his stories embody. They call it the Hemingway Code hero, and they claim that his protagonists all attempt to promote the idea of virtue simply through maintaining one's composure while managing life's trials and tribulations, despite having no discernible faith in anything or anyone but the self. Some people try to glorify the image and emulate these traits. Truthfully, the philosophy of Stoicism can be an effective defense mechanism, but all the research shows that it only works to a degree, and then it doesn't work at all. My name is Trisha Slopizio. I'm your host for another episode of Tea and Bedtime Stories. This is a podcast for anyone who likes to read and discuss good books. I just want to say that when I started this podcast a few weeks ago, connecting with an international audience was more than I expected. To be honest, I don't know what I expected. I had no idea what to expect, but seeing people from all over the world finding and listening to this show is completely amazing to me and also very cool. So thank you very much for your time and attention. I know how precious a commodity those are, and I appreciate you spending them with me. In this episode, we will continue reading Farewell to Arms by Ernest Hemingway. I want to recap Book 1 quickly before we begin Book 2. Last time we finished off with Chapter 12 and Book 1, and now we'll continue Chapter 13. So after the reading, I'll follow up with quick facts, my impressions of the text, and then a few insights from my research. And I think it would be beneficial for this episode if we discuss the Hemingway Code hero just a little bit. But first, a quick summary of Book 1 before we start reading Chapter 13. So in Book 1, we learned that Lieutenant Henry is an American enlisted in the Italian Army during World War I. He is somehow in charge of a small unit of ambulance drivers / mechanics who oppose the war. His closest acquaintances are a priest and his roommate, the surgeon. He spent time traveling and hanging out with hookers mostly and drinking. He's young. He's said he's afraid of God and he's never been in love. He's also infatuated with a nurse that he met recently. We learn that he volunteers to work closest to the front where all the fighting is, and recently he was seriously injured in the latest battle, and he's now on his way to an American hospital in Milan, Italy, where he is expecting to reunite with his crush. So I'll begin reading Chapter 13 of Book 2. We got into Milan early in the morning, and they unloaded us in the freight yard. An ambulance took me to the American hospital. Riding in the ambulance on a stretcher, I could not tell what part of town we were passing through, but when they unloaded the stretcher, I saw a marketplace and an open wine shop with a girl sweeping out. They were watering the street, and it smelled of early morning. They put the stretcher down and went in. The porter came out with them. He had a gray mustache, wore a doorman's cap, and was in his shirt sleeves. The stretcher would not go into the elevator, and they discussed whether it was better to lift me off the stretcher and go up the elevator or carry the stretcher up the stairs. I listened to them discussing it. They decided to go on the elevator. They lifted me from the stretcher. "Go easy," I said. "Take it softly." In the elevator, we were crowded, and as my leg bent, the pain was very bad. "Straighten out the legs," I said. "We can't, Signor Tenente. There isn't room." The man who said this had his arm around me, and my arm was around his neck. His breath came in my face. metallic with garlic and red wine. Be gentle, the other man said. Son of a bitch, who isn't gentle? Be gentle, I say, the man with my feet repeated. I saw the doors of the elevator close and the grill shut, and the fourth floor button pushed by the porter. The porter looked worried. The elevator rose slowly. Heavy? I asked the man with garlic. Nothing, he said. His face was sweating and he grunted. The elevator rose steadily and stopped. The man holding the feet opened the door and stepped out. We were on a balcony. There were several doors with brass knobs. The man carrying the feet pushed a button that rang a bell. We heard it inside the doors. No one came. Then the porter came up the stairs. Where are they? The stretcher bearers asked. I don't know, said the porter. They sleep downstairs. Get somebody. The porter rang the bell, then knocked on the door, and he opened the door and went in. When he came back, there was an elderly woman wearing glasses with him. Her hair was loose and half falling, and she wore a nurse's dress. I can't understand, she said. I can't understand Italian. I can speak English, I said. They want to put me somewhere. None of the rooms are ready. There isn't any patient expected. She tucked her hair and looked at me nearsightedly. Show them any room where they can put me. I don't know, she said. There's no patient expected. I couldn't put you in just any room. Any room will do, I said. Then to the porter in Italian, find an empty room. They are all empty, said the porter. You are the first patient. He held his cap in his hand and looked at the elderly nurse. For Christ's sake, take me to some room. The pain had gone on and on with the legs bent, and I could feel it going in and out of the bone. The porter went in the door, followed by the gray-haired woman, then came hurrying back. Follow me, he said. They carried me down a long hallway and into a room with drawn blinds. It smelled of new furniture. There was a bed with a big wardrobe, and a big wardrobe with a mirror. They laid me down on the bed. I can't put on sheets, the woman said. The sheets are locked up. I did not speak to her. There was money in my own pocket. I said to the porter, in the button-down pocket. The porter took out the money. The two stretcher bearers stood beside the bed holding their caps. Give them 5 lire apiece, and 5 lire for yourself. My papers are in the other pocket. You may give them to the nurse. The stretcher bearer saluted and said, thank you. Goodbye, I said, and many thanks. They saluted again and went out. Those papers, I said to the nurse, describe my case and the treatment already given. The woman picked them up and looked at them through her glasses. There were 3 papers and they were folded. I don't know what to do, she said. I can't read Italian. I can't do anything without the doctor's orders. She commenced to cry and put the papers in her apron pocket. Are you an American? She asked, crying. Yes. Please put the papers on the table by the bed. It was dim and cool in the room. As I lay on the bed, I could see the big mirror on the other side of the room, but I could not see what it reflected. The porter stood by the bed. He had a nice face and was very kind. You can go, I said to him. You can go too, I said to the nurse. What's your name? Mrs. Walker. You can go, Mrs. Walker. I think I will go to sleep. I was alone in the room. It was cool and I did not smell like a hospital. The mattress was firm and comfortable, and I lay without moving, hardly breathing, happy and feeling the pain lessen. After a while, I wanted a drink of water and found the bell on a cord by the bed and rang it, but nobody came. I went to sleep. When I woke, I looked around. There was sunlight coming in through the shutters. I saw a big armoire, the bare walls, and 2 chairs. My legs in the dirty bandages stuck straight out of the bed. I was careful not to move them. I was thirsty and I reached for the bell and pushed the button. I heard the door open and looked. It was a nurse. She looked young and pretty. Good morning, I said. Good morning, she said, and came over to the bed. We haven't been able to get the doctor. He's gone to Lake Como. No one knew there was a patient coming. What's wrong with you anyway? I'm wounded in the legs and feet, and my head hurts. What's your name? Henry. Frederick Henry. I'll wash you up, but we can't do anything to the dressings until the doctor comes. Is Miss Barkley here? No, there's no one by that name here. Who was the woman who cried when I came in? The nurse laughed. That's Mrs. Walker. She was on night duty and she'd been asleep. She wasn't expecting anyone. While we were talking, she was undressing me, and when I was undressed except for the bandages, she washed me very gently and smoothly. The washing felt very good. There was a bandage on my head, but she washed all around the edge. Where were you wounded? On the Sonso, north of Plava. Where's that? North of Gorizia? I could see that none of the places meant anything to her. Do you have a lot of pain? No, not that much. She put a thermometer in my mouth. The Italians put it under the arm, I said. Don't talk. When she took the thermometer out, she read it and then shook it. What's the temperature? You're not supposed to know that. Tell me what it is. It's almost normal. I never have any fever. My legs are full of old iron, too. What do you mean? They're full of trench mortar fragments, old screws and bed springs and things. She shook her head and smiled. If you had any foreign bodies in your legs, they would set up an inflammation and you'd have a fever. All right, I said. We'll see what comes out. She went out of the room and came back with the old nurse of the early morning. Together they made the bed with me in it. That was new to me, and an admirable proceeding. Who's in charge here? Miss Van Kampen. How many nurses are there? Just us two. Won't there be more? Some more are coming. When will they get here? I don't know. You ask great many questions for a sick boy. I'm not sick, I said. I'm wounded. They had finished making the bed, and I lay with a clean, smooth sheet under me and another sheet over me. Mrs. Walker went out and came back with a pajama jacket. They put that on me, and I felt very clean and dressed. You're awfully nice to me, I said. The nurse called Miss Gage giggled. Could I have a drink of water, I asked. Certainly. Then you can have breakfast. I don't want breakfast. Can I have the shutters open, please? The light had been dim in the room, and when the shutters were open, it was bright sunlight, and I looked out on a balcony and beyond were the tile roofs of houses and chimneys. I looked out over the tiled roofs and saw white clouds and the sky very blue. Don't you know when the other nurses are coming? Why, don't we take good care of you? You're very nice. Would you like to use the bedpan? I might try. They helped me and held me up, but it was not any use. Afterward I laid and looked out the open doors onto the balcony. When does the doctor come? When he gets back. We've tried to telephone Lake Como for him. Aren't there any other doctors? He's the doctor for this hospital. Miss Gage brought a pitcher of water and a glass. I drank 3 glasses, and then they left me, and I looked out the window for a while. I went back to sleep. I ate some lunch, and in the afternoon, Miss Van Kampen, the superintendent, came up to see me. She did not like me, and I did not like her. She was small and neatly suspicious, and too good for her position. She asked many questions and seemed to think it was somewhat disgraceful that I was with the Italians. Can I have wine with the meals? I asked her. Only if the doctor prescribes it. I can't have it until he comes? Absolutely not. You plan on having him come eventually? We phoned him at Lake Como. She went back out and Miss Gage came back. Why were you rude to Miss Van Kampen? She asked after she had done something for me very, very skillfully. I didn't mean to be. She was very snooty. She said you were domineering and rude. I wasn't. But what's the idea of a hospital without a doctor? He's coming. They've telephoned for him to Lake Como. What does he do there, swim? No, he has a clinic there. Why don't they get another doctor? Hush, hush, be a good boy and he'll come. I sent for the porter, and when he came, I told him in Italian to get me a bottle of Cinzano at the wine shop and a fiasco of Chianti in the evening papers. He went away and brought them, wrapped in newspaper, unwrapped them, and when I asked him to, drew the corks and put the wine and vermouth under the bed. They left me alone, and I lay in the bed and read the papers a while. The news from the front, and the list of dead officers with their decorations, and then reached down and brought up the bottle of Cinzano and held it straight up on my stomach, the cool glass against my stomach, and took little drinks, making rings on my stomach from holding the bottle there between drinks, and watched it get dark outside over the roofs of the town. The swallows circled around and I watched them, and the night hawks flying above the roofs, and drank the Cinzano. Miss Gage brought up a glass with some eggnog in it. I lowered the vermouth bottle to the other side of the bed when she came in. Miss Van Campen had some sherry put in this, she said. You shouldn't be rude to her. She's not young, and this hospital is a big responsibility for her. Miss Walker's too old, and she's no use to her. She's a splendid woman, I said. Thank her very much. I'm going to bring your supper right away. That's all right, I said. I'm not hungry. When she brought the tray and put it on the bed table, I thanked her and ate a little of the supper. Afterwards, it was dark outside, and I could see the beams of the searchlights moving in the sky. I watched for a while. I slept heavily, except once I woke sweating and scared, and then went back to sleep, trying to stay outside of my dream. I woke for good long before it was light, and heard roosters crowing, and stayed on awake until it began to be light. I was tired, and once it was really light, I went back to sleep again. That concludes chapter 13. I'll translate a few of the terms from the text. So, quick facts: Lake Como. It's a Y-shaped lake in the northernmost part of Italy. It's really close to the border of Switzerland. And it's an ancient lake where Roman soldiers, I guess, were once stationed. There were battles fought there at different times. During World War I, though, it was a transport hub for Allied forces. That's probably why there was a hospital or station there. It's kind of a remote area. Cinzano is just a brand of vermouth, which is a fortified white wine. I think we discussed that previously. But the Cinzano company was founded in 1776. If you go onto their website, you can read all about their history. The Cinzano brothers were responsible for creating Italy's first version of French champagne. It's the Cinzano Spumante. Actually, I like Spumante. It's like a sweet champagne. It's good. But a fiasco of Chianti, he's talking about the round bottle of Chianti. If you buy Chianti now, it doesn't come in the round bottles. I think you can still get the Classico Chianti in the fiascos, but they used to make them in round bottles because they're easier to blow for glass blowers, but they don't sit upright, so they would have to make these little like wicker baskets for them to sit in, and that's what they call the fiasco. But Chianti is a special kind of red wine. For it to be called Chianti, it has to be made with at least 80% Sangiovese grapes from the Chianti region. Yeah, it's pretty good. Eggnog is a custard. It's a kind of drink. In America, we only drink it at Christmas, and only if it's like a really traditional Christmas dinner. Like Chicanos eat tamales, so they don't drink eggnog with tamales. But if you have like ham and, like the white people food, a lot of times they'll serve eggnog as part of the dinner. But I've only ever had it with like rum or brandy, maybe bourbon, but never whiskey or sherry. I don't know, to me that sounds disgusting. But sherry is just another type of fortified wine. So those are my impressions. The quick facts. My impressions are, it's sad. The narrator's description of the situation, like the pain that he's feeling in his surroundings and his environment, made me feel really bad for him. His nightmares, insomnia, avoidance, hypervigilance, and disassociation are all symptoms of acute PTSD. I think the lieutenant has a knack for making fast friends with anyone, right? He has money to throw around, that probably helps. But here he's in an empty hospital where there's like no targets for him to pursue. There's not even other injured people, so it's going to be really hard for him to distract himself in that environment. So it's kind of no wonder that he just wants to drink all the time. But as I mentioned in the introduction, most of Hemingway's leading characters are described with this very specific worldview, labeled the Hemingway Code type hero. It's a person who maintains grace under pressure. They show honor, courage, and endurance in the face of a life that offers no ultimate meaning. I'm quoting here. The code isn't about morality or religion, but about how one lives and dies. I take particular issue with the notion that these characters should be perceived as highly virtuous, because from my perspective, they just look very broken. Stoicism is the endurance of pain or hardship without displaying feelings or without complaining. There's a pretty good Forbes article I list in the description about it that kind of tries to promote Stoicism. It's talking about focusing on what you can control, try to accept your reality, right? One of the main tenets, or I guess the motto of Stoics is amor fati, which means like love your fate. So whatever happens, just embrace it. Act like it doesn't hurt, I guess. And it's kind of sweet in a way when like the character describes watching the birds through the window. I think when he describes the natural environment, the author is alluding to like the character's acceptance of the natural order of things. And it's like the sentiment of life goes on, the circle of life or whatever. But Stoicism teaches that you should constantly monitor and regulate your emotions in order to develop what they think is resilience. Modern Stoics are people who repress their feelings and just endure whatever happens patiently. The practice of Stoicism is basically indifference conditioning. It's emotional avoidance. You're supposed to just be mindful, live in the present moment, because there's no afterlife. And some of this is helpful for coping. But the base assumption that emotions are destructive is fear-based thinking. Suppressing our emotions is a mild form of self-torture. I'll say that again. It's self-torture when we suppress our emotions. So, I don't know. Just what you're really saying to yourself when you're saying it's fine when crappy things happen is really just masking our true feelings, because it's not fine when crappy things happen. And we should not be telling ourselves that it's okay. That's unhealthy and it's not helpful. The only way to develop true resilience is to understand and express our emotions honestly and consistently. Not everyone is safe to express in front of, so we have to pick our battles. But we cannot suppress our emotions. Emotional suppression, it's not an effective strategy for a happy life. I know personally, I tried being stoic for years. All I did was become more and more bitter. And everyone I know who lives that way is emotionally crippled. Even in the Forbes article where they try to promote the idea of being stoic for its virtues, there's a disclaimer in the last paragraph warning that overemphasis hinders emotional expression, which is one of the key components to emotional intelligence. So just be mindful. Anyway, I just wanted to say that because I did not choose this story to try to hype the Hemingway Code hero. To me, it's nonsense. But for Ernest, it makes sense. He was bipolar. That meant that he had to master the art of masking his emotions. He could not be seen as disabled. He would risk being sent away to an institution for life. So stoicism can be effective for coping temporarily, but by all accounts, Ernest suffered a lot of mental anguish throughout his life. He was obsessed with death, and he ultimately took his own life in a very tragic way. So I think the hero of the story is similarly trying to escape his reality, avoid his own feelings, which is probably why he's willing to risk going to jail by doing those site transfers, getting his grandfather's money so that he can buy everybody around him. He's kind of buying friends in a way, and buying alcohol is a way of buying friends. And he just stays wasted all the time. I think he's for sure trying to curb feelings of loneliness and the despair that always accompanies it. It's sad. But anyway, that's all I have for chapter 13. Next time I'll continue reading chapter 14 of book 2. So please join me for more tea and bedtime stories. I look forward to talking to you again soon. Thanks for listening.